Hello, and welcome to the Thinking Elixir podcast, where we cover the news of the community and learn from each other. My name is Mark Erickson.
And I'm David Bernheisel.
Let's jump into the news. First up, Peer Stritzinger, who kicked off the GRISP 2 Kickstarter, has launched a new Kickstarter to fund development on moving from Rebar 3 to improve it and make a new Rebar 4. Which should be the next major version. So Pierre explains that it is needed because adopting OTP's argparse module and reducing dependencies requires a major version bump. What's interesting, I think, is I haven't seen Kickstarter projects really for very much Elixir community development. So this is Beam specific, it impacts all the Beam languages, Elixir and Erlang. And Pierre also explains that the goal will be to get Rebar 4 incorporated into the OTP project, because currently right now it's a separate download. And if you're using Mix, it will download it for you, so it makes it easier. But the idea is to get it actually part of the official OTP build system, which would give a benefit to all the other Beam languages. And as of this recording, it is currently at 61% of its funding goal. So it's not like an expensive fund that they're looking for. And they're also going to be putting in some of their own money. There's a short, 2.5-minute video on the Kickstarter page where he's just introducing what this is all about and what the goals are. Yeah, I mean, it's a credible person. He's deeply involved with GRISP 2, which is like Nerves. It is very much into the embedded space of the Beam. He's done a lot with building, embedded Erlang stuff in automotive. It's interesting. What do you think about this, David?
I was surprised to learn some of this stuff, via this Kickstarter. Makes me wonder, what the interoperability will be for tools that I'm used to, such as Mix, and Gleam has, their own very good, DevX tooling there as well. So obviously we already do interrupt with Rebar in ways, but Rebar 4's goals are to, eat a little bit more into, what Mix and Gleam are doing for you, which is fine. So I'm sure that they'll, it'll end up working out. One of the things I didn't realize though, Rebar 3 doesn't have lock files. I didn't know that. Yeah. So in their stretch goal number 1, it says improve stability and compatibility, introducing lock files to guarantee consistent builds across different setups. I'm surprised it's gotten this far without lock files.
Yeah. I couldn't live without lock files.
Yeah, good Lord. So that's interesting. Stretch goal 2 is dependency management and OTP integration. So reviewing dependencies for more streamlined maintenance, and it sounds like a lot of Mix, it's building a lot of Mix in there. And then stretch goal 3 is Mix and Hex compatibility. So with full compatibility with Rebar 3 Hex and Rebar 3 Mix libraries out there. I'm all down for a collaborated future. So Rebar 4 seems really interesting. I'm really curious about the stretch goals here. So if they're not funded, are they just not going to do it at all? Or is it the vision's still out there? We're just not going to get to it.
It'll just take a lot longer. Yeah.
Yeah. It'll take longer or what? I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see. Very cool. We'll leave a link to the Kickstarter. All of the goals here seem very modest anyway. As of this time of recording, there's 15 days to go. They're over halfway there to their goal, and I'm sure they would love to go over their goal and be overfunded, which is pretty cool. I'll be sure to back it myself.
This episode is sponsored by Paraxial.io, the only security platform with true Elixir support. I sat down with founder Michael Lubis to ask some questions about how Elixir developers should think about security. Welcome back, Michael.
Thank you.
All right, ready for this week's question? What is the worst case scenario in a hack? Are we talking data leak, ransom, something worse? What do you think and what do you see?
When a company gets hacked, especially through a web application, such as an Elixir Phoenix app, a lot of bad things can happen. The ransomware problem is really recent, and it very suddenly became the biggest issue companies have to deal with, where instead of a hacker breaking in and just leaking data, what if the business has to shut down, where operations stop? You can't serve customers because the database is encrypted and somebody's literally demanding a ransom for you to restore business operations. So I would say ransomware is by far the biggest risk, and it's very recent. Businesses dealt with piracy, for example, with shipping for thousands and thousands of years. That goes back to ancient history. In a sense, the crime is old. Ransom, it's been around for thousands of years, but ransomware as a problem is very new and definitely relevant for every developer listening to this right now.
All right, next up, Tidewave Web now supports OpenRouter and React support. So those are two big things. So Tidewave.ai has a blog, and you can find more details in each of their blog posts, and we've got a link to them. So we'll go into a little bit of here. First of all, Tidewave Web, of course, they have to go full stack. Of course, right? Of course they have to. And so what does that really mean? Well, Phoenix already understands Heeks, templates, and HTML and CSS by supporting Phoenix and Rails at all, right? But there are a lot of Phoenix applications out there with like front ends with at least components in React. Mm-hmm. And so now Tidewave Web supports that. So it supports Reacts in the revamped inspector. Now it shows like the DOM and the framework overlays and auto fixes, some of the crashes that might happen with your front end bundling, system. So all that just makes it for a smoother operation here. We've got links to the React documentation. And okay, here's the other bit though, is that now they support OpenRouter. What is OpenRouter? So Tidewave Web has to talk to some AI, agent out there, right? Not agent, LLM system out there. It throws some API requests out to somewhere to get the smartness, right? And so the two that it kind of supports before this announcement was Anthropic and or GitHub Copilot. And then Copilot has its own, models that it uses underneath the hood. With OpenRouter is an online service that will, basically act as a router of your LLM calls to any of those providers. It's a unified, that's their goal, right? It's to have a unified API across all these LLM providers. And so you would sign up for OpenRouter, you would pay OpenRouter, and then OpenRouter would then, turn around and give some of that to the providers underneath. And so those API calls go to them first, and then you can configure, OpenRouter to say, hey, when Anthropic goes down, go use GPT or OpenAI, right? And so forth. I'm sure there's lots more that platform, can offer you, but OpenRouter is a little fee on top, right? So it's not a free thing. Not that that's a bad thing, right? Service is service. It deserves something. But it also unlocks the ability for Tidewave Web to talk to a number of AI providers that might be better for your use case. So that's the good news there. And hey, when things go down, just switch to the other one. I guess it wouldn't be too hard to do that in just Tidewave Web itself, but OpenRouter just kind of automates that for you, which is pretty nice.
It's cool. OpenRouter is an interesting service, and they do say, hey, we don't do anything with your data, all that kind of stuff. So
yeah. All right, and the last thing about Tidewave is they do have a public roadmap, so you can go to GitHub and you can thumbs up the next thing that they're working on, next framework, for example. So you can cast your votes, really, right? We'll have a list of links. We'll definitely have a list of links, but we'll have that particular link in that list.
Yes. Yeah, but with this, just to make sure it's clear, there were 2 blog posts on Tidewave Web, one about OpenRouter and then one about Tidewave going full stack. And the full stack is where you're getting some of that React integration.
Yeah, just starting with React. On the list of more support is Vite and Next.js, and on the backend side, Django, Flask, Fast API. If any of those are in your wheelhouse, Vue is also in there, by the way, Vue.js. If any of those are in your wheelhouse, you should go give a thumbs up so it comes sooner rather than later for you.
Yep. And next up, Phoenix 1.8.1 was released. So this is the 0.1 release. And this one, it's really very small. There's just a bug fix where the AGENTS.md file that was being generated failed to include the CSS and JavaScript section. So the AGENTS.md file is when you're generating a new Phoenix project, it just splats this AGENTS.md file in the root of your project, which is there for your LLM tooling to read from, like be that Claude Code or Cursor AI or something, right? So that it can read this file and know how to write better Elixir code with fewer errors, so it's doing fewer cycles. It does add more to the context window, but like that's a choice. But what this is doing is, hey, somehow some of this stuff was not getting in there on the original release. So if you're like me and you immediately jumped on the 1.8.0 release to grab that agents file, well, you'll want to go grab this new release and get an update and generate that new file.
All right, next up. So we talked about ElixirConf US videos a little bit ago, a couple of, or at least an episode ago, right? We kind of noticed that they had published all of the videos from this past year. Evidently, that was a whoopsie, so they've all been pulled. So if you got to watch some, I guess good for you. But we've got a link to the playlist of what is currently published, and as of time of recording, it's just a couple of them in there. José's talk, the opening keynote by Allison Randall, and then also Chris McCord's keynote is also published, though it's not quite yet in the playlist. Anyway, you can find them publicly on their YouTube channel at least. So it's just those keynotes for now. I'm not sure what their plan is for dripping out the rest of those videos out there, but yeah, if you got to watch it, good for you. Yeah. If you didn't, they still want to sell, I think, those virtual tickets, even though the conference is over. Those virtual tickets do provide you early access to those videos on the vi.to platform there, where they have all the talks, where they live streamed it, really, right? So they're still there, and I'm sure that they're still trying to fix up the videos as well. They may still be fairly unprocessed or something like that, right? Yeah. Anyway, we've got links to all that, just the 3 keynotes for now. I know they've got more keynotes to come, at least the closing one, I think, and then, yeah, of course, all the talks and the lightning talks and such.
Yeah, and if you don't follow me online on Blue Sky or Twitter, then you should, because you would have learned about these videos being available when they were still available. So I posted on September 2nd that the entire set of videos was there. I keep it all very Elixir-centric. And next up, AshFramework announced a new CVE. So it is a before transaction hook that will accidentally or unintentionally execute in certain scenarios, specifically when bulk action calls are being made. It'll execute those hooks even if that action is forbidden by the policies. So that's what it is. It's kind of it's an authorization bypass. So the fix is to update Ash Core to 3.5.39. There is a CVE that has been released for it. We've got a link to it on the Ash project. So like on the GitHub project, there's a security tab, and that can link to the CVE there, and it has more details in case that's something that would impact you. It's like a 7.1 on the CVE scale. So it's something to take care of, definitely, but it's not a hair on fire remote code execution on your servers, nothing like that.
All right. Well, that'll round out our Elixir news for the day. But there was an important industry, thing that we want to talk about, security-wise. You probably already heard about it, maybe, if you're up to speed. There's a couple of NPM packages that were recently pwned. The numbers caught me off guard here, which is why we're talking about it now. We've got a link to the blog post where they detail the hack with more details and like how it happened, what's in fact affected, and all that kind of stuff. Here's what happened. There's a fella out there that's a maintainer of a lot of NPM packages, and the one that I know of is called Chalk, as in like chalkboard coloring kind of stuff. So the idea is that this NPM package makes it really easy to stylize your debugger outputs, for example, or if you need to if you're streaming like terminal output to the browser and you need to translate that terminal stuff to colors, Chalk would be used for that. Or if you're building, just a CLI program, but in JavaScript or TypeScript, you could use Chalk to, colorize the standard output stuff. Pretty common. Right? So common. Here's the numbers, right? The notable packages are Chalk, which is about 300 million downloads per week. And then there's a couple other ones, probably packages that Chalk depends on. It's called Debug and ANSI styles. Debug is 360-ish downloads per week, and ANSI styles is like 370-ish downloads per week. So, that's not
that's millions of downloads.
Yes. Millions. Yeah, millions. That's not all of them. So if you took the whole list there, like all the pwned ones are about 2 billion downloads per week. Okay. Well, so here's a quote of what the malware is doing. So this malware is essentially a browser-based interceptor that hijacks both network traffic and application APIs, and it injects itself into functions like fetch, an XML HTTP request, and common wallet interfaces. In this by the way, means like crypto wallets. So if you're not into that, good for you. And it silently rewrites values in requests and responses. All right, that's the end of the quote. So yeah, the idea here, it seems to be crypto focused. So if you have like a browser extension about wallets and you're paying, with crypto or something like that, I'm guessing what this is trying to do is like redirect where those payments are going.
Yeah. It sounds like it's going to be rewriting. So there was a long time ago corrupted Chrome extensions and things like that, or malware that would rewrite the page that you're viewing in the browser so that you go to copy and paste a Bitcoin address, which is long. You're not going to type that because you can't risk mistyping it. So you copy and paste it, and it would actually, no, I remember it. Yeah. You would copy it, and then it would see that in the clipboard, the shared clipboard, there was something on the clipboard now that looks like a Bitcoin address, and it would swap it for its own. And then when you go to paste it, unless you double check it, your money transfer just went somewhere else. So this sounds like they're injecting it into development, applications that are sending these XML, HTTP requests and injecting into that. And so it's a lower level thing. It's ugly. This
looks like a bad one. Yeah, what could have happened, right? What could have happened differently? Well, the maintainer did have 2FA enabled. But he was phished by an email and fooled by the domain. The domain was npmjs.help. And so it looked legit enough. And he got compromised. So they locked him out of his NPM, stuff. He then published things. And anyway, I think everything by now has been restored. But what can you do about that? It's really easy to think, well, you should have had 2FAs. Well, he did.
Yes.
And it becomes a human error, once you get phished, and that's too bad that happened.
And honestly, that could happen to anybody. That the stupid thing is, and this is the unfair, it's unbalanced, right? The bad guy only has to get it right once, and the defender, it loses if they get it wrong one time. So the attacker can fail many times, but if they succeed once, then they succeed. Yeah. But the defender, that's us. We're the defenders. Yes. If we fail one time, then it's over. It's no good.
Now the article talks a lot about the malware being crypto focused. Though I don't know if it's exclusive to that. I don't know if there's enough details about it. In other words, if you're trying to think, am I safe or not? And your rule is, well, I don't deal in crypto, I must be safe. I'm not sure. I'm not sure that's true. So the remediation advice on the post is for all the listed, libraries, and they've got it on the page there. For all the listed libraries there, go check to see if any of them are installed on your computer, in your libraries, I guess, first of all. Because if you're publishing that to your website or your app, you might be affecting others with that, right? But if you've got your own CLI things of things that you're using just on your computer, check the versions that you're using. You can clean your npm cache. You can reinstall all the packages in your repository. Just make sure they're avoiding those compromised versions. And then lastly, a bit of advice from them is make sure you're using the package lock file, and that's only as good as your definitions of the pinned versions. I think it's quite easy in npm world to just npm install, npm I for install, and that doesn't necessarily listen to your lock file. It will try to upgrade up to the logic of your pinned versions in your package JSON, right? Which I think is a dumb default behavior, but whatever. So get in the habit of npm CI, which will only install the versions that are in your lock file, right? It doesn't try to upgrade everything, right? And then intentionally upgrade your stuff too, I guess, is the other side of that. So if you're going to be stuck on those old versions, that means that you do need to upgrade maybe more intentionally than you might be used to. All right, well, that's all I got there. That's sorry to end on bad news, but it seemed important enough to talk about.
Yeah. So the article that we linked to, it's a security firm. They do a deeper analysis. They break down some of the obfuscated JavaScript, talk about what it's doing. But even after you deobfuscate it, it is very obtuse, right? It is like hashes that are being turned into code or something. It is not entirely clear all the things that it could be doing. So it's just, hey, beware, check your dependencies. Honestly, I try to keep my node dependencies super minimal, like as minimal as absolutely possible.
How do you do that?
I use live view, and then I only, like where I need hooks, I'm only pulling in, sortable, and I'm only pulling in like this other thing. And, I try to keep it as small as possible just because NPM is scary.
Yeah,
just in terms of like managing dependencies, like not even the security aspect, right? But just managing, like, you can get millions of lines of code all through dependency, like all the whole chains.
Yeah.
And you get all that in your computer, and that's part of your website. And is that it's not audited. I'm not auditing it. So it's like, hey, just keep it out as much as I can. That means you can't have the nice things like, chalk in your CLI to make it look pretty. You just can't.
Stop trying to make things look beautiful.
Yep.
Yeah, I love coming across those dependencies that are like, this is dependency-free library. I'm like, yes, feels good meme, and need more of that. It's about chalk npm this time, but next time it could be a hex thing, because that was 2FA, and I feel like hex handles security really well in these regards, but the same story could have happened to us. So we need to, if you haven't enabled 2FA on your hex account, if you're publishing libraries out there, let this little story be your prompt to go do that. Go ahead and just enable it. Now, this didn't help this guy, but one more layer, of security.
Honestly, what I think a takeaway for me is, if you are a maintainer of a project that has any amount of audience, any amount of number of downloads, you are a target. That's what it comes down to. Like, and that someone creating an npm.js.help domain, they're going after other people too. This just happens to be a guy who got caught. And I feel bad for him. It's embarrassing. It's like, oh, crap. That sucks.
Yeah. Hexdocs.com, hexdocs.help.
Yeah.
I could totally imagine it.
It's scary though. Like, because if you are the maintainer of something, then you are a target. So that's just something to keep in mind. Extra caution when following any, like, he got a targeted email that was, targeting him, and it was a support at, this domain. So Ruby, the gems, the Elixir community, none of us are immune to it. Right now, the Elixir community is probably just small enough that it's not getting the most attention, right? Like, that's why Windows gets most of the malware, is because of its footprint, right? It's like it's the biggest surface area.
Well, with that news in mind, have a good and positive week.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you for listening. We hope you'll join us next time on Thinking Elixir.